Last year, there were 14 books on this list. And this year, there's only 5. That's gotta be a good thing, right? What's up, guys? Today I am bringing you this year's worst books video, and this is the worst books that I read in 2015. There are a lot less books on this list than last year's list. Like, not to say that I only read 5 bad books, but these were the worst 5, and the rest were just like okay, or at least good enough to not make the worst books list. I don't own any of these books, thankfully, except for one which I bought on iBooks. But again, it was only like $5, so it wasn't a huge loss. So let's get on to number 5, which is Illusion by Claudia Gable and Cheryl Clam. The premise of this book is this futuristic society where like the world is polluted, and we have our main character Radian, whose father invented this like simulation video game type thing called Illusion with an E, which basically a virtual reality world you can escape to, since you can't really go outside in the outside world without wearing like a gas mask because it's like all polluted. And then I think her father dies, but I don't really remember or care. I ended up giving this book a rating of 2.5 stars. I didn't really like it. I honestly didn't expect much from it, so that's kind of in a way what I got. The main character was extremely annoying, and she was really bratty. I did not like her at all. I actually just didn't like any of the characters in the story. Like, they were either like flat or just annoying or whatever. I just did not like a single character. The plot wasn't all too interesting either. Like, I was pretty bored for most of the book, and it's like a 500-page book, so it's not some like short little thing. It's like it takes a lot like to get into, and even then I couldn't even get into it. Like, I was just bored the whole time. The romance in this book was also extremely annoying. It was a stupid love triangle, but like, first of all, I don't even like love triangles. But if you do it in a good way, then it's somewhat acceptable. But this was just like probably one of the worst love triangles I've ever read. Like, there was no connection with any character. Like, none of them seemed like they were fit for each other. It was just like way too forced and stupid. The ending was somewhat intriguing enough to make me want to continue, but unfortunately I'm not continuing this series because the first book was just like not enough for me to want to commit to another book that's probably the same exact size. The 4th worst book of this year that I read was Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. Like, I already know that I didn't like Shakespeare when I read Romeo and Juliet in 2014, and the only reason I read this was, again, because it was for school. I rated it 2 stars, and mostly the reason why I didn't like it was, one, the dialogue, which I already know that I don't like Shakespeare's writing because it's like half the time I don't understand what you're saying. It's like, doth, I beseech you, oh, woe is me, all that language that it's like, what are you saying? And also the plot just wasn't that interesting, honestly. Like, it was kind of boring, and like I didn't really care about anything that happened or any of the characters. It was just like boring, and even when stuff was happening, it's like, I don't really care. Number 3 on my list is A Separate Piece by John Knowles. Again, I read this book for school. This is a common theme in this year's list. I rated it 2.5 stars. This book, it was just like a whole big, what is the point of this? Like, it was pointless. I don't understand. I didn't understand and still don't understand what the point of this book was. I could not tell you what the plot was about because there was basically no plot at all. It was just like jumbled around. There was no main conflict. It was just like, no. Basically, it was about these like boys in this Devon school, boarding school or whatever during World War One, I think. And it's just like there's like nothing happens though. It's just like they're chronicling their daily life at the school. And it's so boring because like literally the one main conflict is literally jumping off of this one tree into the river. It's like what like okay, how is that a conflict? Like, and then there was this weird conflict between the main character and his best friend where I'm not going to say it because it's like kind of spoilery, but it's like there was no main conflict that was like actually sensible. It was just so pointless and nothing happened, so it was boring. And I mean, I guess it wasn't like horrible, but it was definitely not classic material in my opinion. The next book on this list for the number 2 spot is kind of controversial. My second least favorite book of this year was Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Calm down there, don't pull out your pitchforks and torches. I understand that this was like everyone's favorite book, especially around the time that the movie came out. And that's mainly the reason why I read this. I bought it at iBooks for like $5 because I saw the trailer for the movie and it looked really interesting. So I was like, ooh, I want to read that. And everyone seemed to love it. So I was like, might as well give it a try. But I ended up hating it. I was honestly really bored throughout the whole book. And to me, it took so long. Like when I read it, it took a month for me to read. It just felt like it was way too long and way too like in depth and complicated. I did not connect with either main character, Nick or Amy. So that made it even more like not interesting because I didn't care about what happened to any of them. Not to mention, the ending was extremely unrealistic and ridiculous. It was so dumb and like almost anticlimactic. Like, really? Like, that's how you're gonna end it? The only reason I didn't rate this 1 star is that I appreciated how much work the author put into characterizing the characters, especially Amy, like making you actually see how insane she is, and then also creating the mystery aspect, like was it Nick? Is he the insane one or is Amy the insane one? Like I liked that part of it, but past that, I didn't really like anything else about this book at all. And my number 1 worst book of 2015 is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Again, another book that I read for school that I absolutely hated. Like, this was part of my summer reading. I started it at the end of June and I didn't finish it until like middle to end of July. It took me like a month. So let me take you on a little story time now about why I hate this book. I mean, the primary reason is because I was forced to read something that I didn't want to read for summer reading, and I could have been reading things that I actually wanted to read, but that took up all my time, and it was really freaking annoying. Reason number 1, the dialogue is all Southern style, and not just Southern style. There was like all these different Southern styles, like not just one. So it's like everyone talks differently and none of it makes sense. It was really annoying. You can't even understand what people are saying half the time, so you have to reread the page like 3 times. And even then, I still had to use Spark Notes to actually understand what the heck happened in some parts. Reason number 2, the plot was so boring even when things happened. And not to say it wasn't a there was a plot, but even so, I was just so disinterested that even when things were happening, I was like, this is so boring. Reason number 3, I did not connect with any of the characters at all. The only character that I was even remotely connected to was Jim, and he was like the character that was like put down the most and like made to be like a fool or stupid person, which was really annoying. And like I kind of get why, since it was like times of slavery and whatnot. But like at the same time, like even Huck like was like talking to him and like just thinking like that he's stupid, and he's not, and that really annoyed me because he was the only likable character at all in the whole entire book. Reason number 4, there was so many things that were handled so foolishly. It could have been done in a much easier way if it was just approached differently. And there's all these like weird plans and just things that they tried to do to solve the problems, but it was just so outrageous and dumb that it was just like doesn't even help. Like if you just did it another way, it could have been so much easier. And reason number 5 why I don't like this book is the preface basically renders the whole book pointless, because it literally says in the preface like something along the lines of, if you try to find a point or theme in this book, that the author will try and like fight you. Like it literally says something along the lines of that you're not supposed to try and find a point or a theme in this book. Like literally the preface says, persons attempting to find a motive in this narrative will be prosecuted. Persons attempting to find a moral in it will be banished. Persons attempting to find a plot in it will be shot. It's like, why am I reading this then? I just wanted to get it over with. Like, good riddance. So those are, in my opinion, the 5 worst books that I read this year. I'm sorry if I offended you with my opinions. If these are any of your favorite books, like, please respect my opinions. I'll respect yours. I mean, we all have different opinions on books. Some people like them, some people don't. These are just my opinions. So yeah, and do you agree with my list maybe? Let me know, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.